Welcome back to Wickerson Studios. I'm just kind of returning to some very simple Grasshopper tools to make some interesting geometries, nothing too fancy in the renders. And what I'm doing is just kind of going into my nodes and picking one and seeing what it inspires. And this is a script that was inspired. It's an interesting little geometry. You can see that it kind of extrudes at the bottom of a building, but has an interesting render on it. Never really made anything like, well, I made it geometrically like this, but I don't know if I've made it the way I intended here. Would have come at it any other way. So what I've done here is I'm just going to jump in, probably grab top view, which is kind of interesting to think about how this was made, and just throw that back into shaded so you can see what's going on. The script is pretty simple. What I did was I grabbed this node, boundaries access. I'd never grabbed that before. Let's just see what it's called. It's called gradient hatch, and I grabbed it because I guess I was over a display, and maybe that wasn't even it. Maybe it was just here, and I was like, I don't even know where it is. I found it somehow. There it is. It's in display, and it was over here. I think it was there. I was like, well, that's with the 3D tag, and there's this hatching one, so maybe it came out in Rhino 7. And so there's the new node. And I was like, well, what's it do? All right, it needs, so I go here and I look, and it needs curves. So I immediately was like, okay, I'll make some curves. But without getting too tricky, I think my initial curve was pretty simple. I just grabbed a circle, and I was like, all right, let's stick a circle in there. So I basically just took a circle, stuck it in there, and it said it needed an axis. So it basically needs a line. So I was like, well, the simplest way to make a line is just go in here and make a start line dimension. I grabbed a point, and I thought, well, here's the first one I made. I made an axis, and I was like, well, I'll just make a little axis and stick it in there. And I thought before I put it through a range, I'd just put it through an X coordinate, a digit, and I watched what it did. It actually started to play off of, as I moved this, it started to move the stuff inside and out. It started to move it this way and that, and the gradient started to change because of it. So that was a nice, simple way to begin. Don't ask me why I did it. I just did it. And in the end, you end up making these kind of top cool surfaces that became kind of red and blue, and sometimes all red and sometimes all blue, depending on where they were. So that was it. I went in and I thought, okay, and then color swatch, I just changed some colors, and I was playing with it. And then all I did was just jazz it up with how I usually do it. And it gets a little convoluted here because then, even though I had a system that was pretty happily working, if I went into here and you saw what I had, uh, let's just go back to what it was. I decided instead of a circle, I'd use a polygon, and I set it to 5. Even though you can set that to whatever you want, you can switch that back to 2 and 3. And of course, in doing so, you change all these geometries of your entire house system, which is kind of nice. There's 3, there's 4, there's 5. But I was actually more thrilled as I was playing with it, looking at the top view. I thought it was pretty interesting how this kind of staggered up and became this kind of hovered form. And when I had it in render, it was doing some really cool stuff. It was just actually, I don't even think it was in render. Maybe it was ghosted, and I was doing something nice with these kind of half movements. So I had a fillet radius, which I thought was cool because then I could smooth it out and change the shape of those little cones. This is what Grasshopper's all about. So like getting some basic geometries, playing with it a little bit. That one node inspired, I guess all I ended up doing was making 2 axes so I could move one in one direction, one in the other. The start line direction I drew out of here because I wanted to, what did I want to do? That was the axis. Maybe I only took one axis. What did I do with the other one? The other one I ended up just, where'd that point go? I took it to a move. I used this point to move, and I moved it in 2 motions. So that's why it got exciting. I took it from this motion axis, and then I took it from this one, which was positive and negative direction. So you really just keep playing with this, with the maths of how you want, and build your geometry, keeping it moving pretty fast. I have a nice jitter node on here, which will, jitter it all. But if I didn't want jitter, I could bring it back to this pretty conservative model, like with no jitter. And there's the building that most people would tend to make because they're, you don't understand randomness is, or you didn't value randomness. Well, I like it random and jittered up and going crazy on all the slopes. But look at the changes you're getting in that. And then the heights. If you want to really play off the heights and have a deeper, higher city architecture, what a great little script for a bunch of Pentagon houses. And I don't think anybody wants to live in a Pentagon house, and nobody wants to live in a triangular house unless they have computers in the corners of the rooms. So maybe hexagon, maybe lucky number 7 is the pavilion that you want. And I just like this little node because it allowed me to not have to go to baking, and I could value the roofs in 2 different colors. And then I just simply extruded down in the other direction. Just kept it simple, and that slows it down a little bit. And I just populated a geometry with that certain the list count, the number, the list length, which was 20. So I just brought it in. I had to do a little bit of math and drop it down, I think, a point. But there's your count. And also, if you wanted to get jazzy, just throw in with the power of GH Python's just amazing because you can really get in here, and once you learn how to code in one language or not, you can really come back to this fantastic coding and scripting through Grasshopper. So I'm going to have this system out there. It'll be on my GitHub if you want to sign up for it. I'm going to just keep making tons of scripts, and I'm just making these as little samples for a workshop that I'm about ready to teach at the Kansas City Art Institute, which I think is kind of fun. Look at that. Now I got to blow that one up and change the scape of that one because that one's actually getting pretty interesting in this direction. Actually, I think I'm going to put it into technical just to see how it looks. Well, you're not going to see the colors on the top because they're planar. So we can just leave that one artistic or pen. And then down here, I've got this nice little rotation that I can enjoy here. I'll just do a little center, bring it in, and throw it through a turntable and enjoy it as we're ending. So I'm not really one to teach a lot of tutorials. I think it's basically grab yourself a node, see what it inspires. The more you know about this, the more you think to take things through iterations. If this script gets kind of slow and you know exactly what you want to do, this is a great way to sketch, in my opinion. Use Grasshopper to sketch ideas. And then when you're done, you might want to make them more programmable or put them into a code, put them into the, which I keep mentioning, putting them into the Python node or putting them into the C# node and try and condense them and do something that would take a little more. Actually, it's pretty simple. You're using, pretty simple tools, move, polygon with a certain amount of size, a list length, a jitter, which is just introducing a random seed, moving those things again, extruding things, using an orientation tool, populating that. And that's where it was. I populated that with the list count, the seed. I didn't do this, but if I run that through the seed, well, maybe I did. You can just run that through the seed and see your different jitters as you go. And then this was the negative direction. If I wanted to make it real big, it's going to slow it down a little bit. If I started to pull it down, it's not so lovely if it gets like that. If I just had it a little subtle, little boxes, that's kind of nice. There you go. I'd live there. Looks like something in Montreal would like to build. So I hope you enjoy it. I'm not overthinking this stuff. I'm just trying to entice people to get beyond what's called static modeling in Rhino and have some fun with Grasshopper and really taking the advice to just get in there, grab a node that you haven't used before that's in the vanilla. That was the one I grabbed because I just am working backwards now instead of going through params, maths, and going this way. I thought, well, why don't we go to display and work our way back? And that was the first one that kind of caught my interest because I'd played with all these before. There were some weird ones in here, dot displays and symbols, but I think the hearts just turned me off. I don't really want to build pie charts and things like that. This is good for annotation if you want to tell somebody all the specs of what you're doing. But really, the most first interesting node that jumped into my mind was this one, and probably I'll go into hatch pattern and see what I can do with that next because that one looked kind of fun too. And look at that. What happens when we do that? Who knows? It looks awfully similar to the one we just did. So what happens? And before I botch anything, I'll probably just have save, and then I'll hit save as, and I'll do this as another version, exercise 3, C. And what I'm going to do now is just take my, I always think it's a nice surprise to lock your solver, take your stuff off, push it on over, do the magic. Oh, those are scale and angles. That's not going to work. So maybe I'll just, yeah, because I'm just playing around. And what did I do here? What is that one? Okay, that's the boundaries. Those are the axes. The default scale is probably one. No, default scale is going to want a number. So I'm going to scale it. Let's get rid of this one and remove from group. Pull it over here. Keep this one here because I was using it. Okay, and I may come back to it. I don't want to destroy it. But scale factor is not in there, but it wants a number. So I will just type in and play it safe. I could play it safe from 0 to 1, but I'll play it safe with this. use the scale factor, which is a bit ridiculous. Maybe because the solver's not on. Maybe I'm just going to type in 0.01 to 1.5, and that'll be my slider, so I don't have to get so big. And the angle, it wants an angle to the pattern, and that's a number angle as well. So I imagine that that's been set to degrees. If I click that, it might click it over the radians. I'm just going to trust that it's radians and go into pi and just put in 0 to 2.00 pi. And that'll just give it a full spin, so it won't be too exciting. And then let's unlock the solver and see what happens. Bam! And what happened? All right, we've got this thing happening. Looking at the top, hard to say. We've lost the color display. So we've got the ability to go in here, and then what's happening is I'm rolling these around. Nothing. And scaling factor. Okay, so I am scaling it. That's kind of fun. I like that. I can't really see what's happening here, so I'm going to put it into shaded and see if I can't go in. And that's a hatch pattern, and that's scaling the hatch. Okay, I get you. So you get this other kind of weird, wonderful illusion as to what you're doing, and you can see that in the lines. Very nice. So that might actually become fabrication or tool paths or something like that. And the angles are, it's just rotating the angles. Fantastic. So something to play with. I think those are the first two with going backwards for the vanilla grasshopper that I like. This one and the hatching, and then we'll go in here. We might play around a little bit with these, but quite honestly, I'll probably just jump into utilities and work backwards here and see what's happening as I get into these groups and start using these utilities, and then certainly the morph tools, which if you know anything about them, they slow things down awfully fast. So I'm just going to put this in here and do a group and save that as that file. So that's how I'm thinking. Let's go back a little bit and just pull this. Well, we had it there. We had the other one on there. And I think we'll call it a day.